Hi everyone, my name is Vinny. I'm from Syracuse, New York, and I would like to thank everybody who is giving my video a chance here for me to share what's probably a somewhat profound testimony. Um, the reason I say this is because everyone has had trouble, with mental health or addiction at some point, uh, that's had similar experiences to me. But the extent of which things went through or went to for me were pretty intense. So I just like to show everybody what kind of trials and what kind of intense experiences a Christian is able to go through. And although I did not live a godly or obedient life the majority of the time until recently, I never did give up my faith and my belief, and I continued to pray, and I continued to sometimes read scriptures and often talk about God through the course of all these trials. That it would probably be considered somewhat unconventional, as far as the mainstream or the norm for somebody that goes through these kinds of things. And it's no a credit to myself or anything like that. It was Jesus that stayed with me through all this and blessed me with the grace of faith. It was a minimum faith. At times it was a very minimum faith, but I never did blame him or give up. Although I probably got, hurt feelings. I don't even think I got angry, but I got kind of like hurt feelings, like, why, God, why do I got to keep going through this? But anyway, I'll get right into it. I grew up in the suburbs of Syracuse, and pretty average uh, median income area. My family upbringing was very, I would say, above average. Sometimes my parents feel bad, but because of all the things I went through, but that's none of their fault. I never blame them. I've gotten resentful a couple times during, intense emotional outbursts, but for the most part, they paid a lot of attention to me. They gave me a lot of love. Even though we really didn't go to church much, mainly just holidays in the Catholic Church. Both of my parents were believers. They always told me they loved me. Things aren't perfect. They did get divorced when I was about 11 or 12. So that's kind of why, sometimes they feel bad, or, I used to feel a little resentful because it was around that time, I started thinking about just things with God and things with the spirit world. And I don't know, I was in school just a kind of a weird, awkward kid. I had a lot of mental health issues that developed really early in my life, probably around 9. And I just thought I was weird. I didn't understand what was going on. I had OCD, like a lot of rituals, and I thought everything was contaminated. I thought I was going to get diseases. I used to have to check the house every night, or put a blanket down on the couch before I laid on it. If it touched one part of the couch, I'd have to go upstairs and change my clothes because they got contaminated. So there's a lot of like severe anxiety issues that I was going through, but nobody really knew that much back in the mid 80s about it. I don't think OCD was talked about them, not until the 90s at least. But anyway, I was supposed to make my confirmation, and I had so much anxiety around people and in school that this was like another class outside of school I was going to have to take, and it gave me a lot of anxiety to have to be around more kids during a structured thing. And I don't know, I wasn't, it was giving me anxiety, and I was starting to get my own thoughts about God. I'm like, why do I have to do it that way? Does God say it that way? And I started to read the Bible, by myself around the same time. So my grandma's like, oh, okay, honey, you don't have to go if you don't want to. My mom had me call my grandma because that's kind of where the Catholic tradition started, but they never pressured me or anything like that. Very little, any type of, trying to push me in the direction of any type of beliefs. Now, I got to mention, very shortly before I started to read the Bible, I became interested in like the spirit world and the powers of that because I felt powerless myself over all these issues that were going on inside me, the mental health issues, and I felt awkward in school. And I wanted I didn't think it at the time. I just saw it was something cool, but I was looking for this source of power to make me not feel the inadequacy that I was feeling. So a friend of mine, and myself, we ended up getting a Ouija board. I don't know what prompted us to think about that, but we bought it at the mall together. We went there, and I remember like playing with it a few times and thinking that we were contacting something from the medieval times, wizards, or things like that. It was kind of strange, and I just remember vaguely just getting these strange negative feelings like this isn't right. I didn't know how it wasn't right because it seemed cool, it was powerful, but I'm like, I don't know, I don't trust this. Just something inside made me say don't trust that. And that's when I started, reading the Bible instead, and all these other things happened. I also remember having these strange visions, not actually seeing, visually with my eyes, but like seeing things out in the back field where we lived and visualizing this tall structure with all of these people or entities there. And I don't know, I had like an office at the top, and nobody had weapons because I used to play, military gun type stuff when I was young. So I was really into that stuff, but it wasn't that kind of thing. It was just, I don't know what it was, but I was getting these intense feelings inside that I wasn't able to understand. It's almost like I would get surges of energy and pace back and forth and have these visions and look out there and like see, not necessarily with my actual vision, but like I don't know how to explain it. If I could see it with inside my own head, and people might say, "Well, that's just an imagination," or maybe it was the precursor for like bipolar disorder developing, which is what I do suffer with now. And that could be true to some extent, but a lot of these high surges of kind of unexplainable energy is sometimes related to bipolar and mental health issues. So I'm going to guess, that the Ouija board and, developing mental health issues at that age that continued through my whole life are like Satan's first major attack on me. It's like planting in me some of the things that he ends up, the efforts and the lengths that Satan goes to keep me away from God and keep me, distracted in a different kind of life that is not godly, even though I never lost my faith. And I used to talk about God a lot, and I used to still pray the majority of the time every night. So, anyway, around the age of 14, the second major attack from Satan came, and that was, we stole some beers from our parents' refrigerator. My friend did from his parents. And anyway, we went behind the local school towards the woods, and we drank, I think it was 3 or 4 beers apiece. And we were, drunk off that. Obviously, we were 14 years old. And I was like, finally, this is the answer, because I just felt all these fears, all this lack of power. I felt this power, no more fear, no more anxiety. I could finally feel like I was freed from something. Like it was just I just remember thinking in my head, this is the answer. Now, because I wasn't very popular in school and things like that, and the older kids in the neighborhood who were like the cool kids, they were all into athletics, all the best athletic players, all the preppy kids and popular kids in school. These older kids, probably they were like seniors and we were freshmen. We were, me and my friend, when I say we were the two, guys that started partying before everybody else. So we ended up, getting invited to these parties that the older kids were at. And it's like, wow, I'm hanging out with these guys that are older than me and they're paying attention to me. And, I'm drinking and started smoking pot with them. And, they got a kick out of it because we were younger, but it's like I'm getting invited to things that, I never thought I'd hang out with these guys. So now there's this other lie that's being told to me that I'm accepted. There's a sense of power now. I don't have the anxiety or the mental health issues are subsided for the time being that I was using. Not actually when you're sober in between, which became less and less as my life went on. But anyway, this ended up LSD at 15 years old. I'm taking LSD way too much, probably every week for like a year, year and a half. And I ended up selling LSD and pot to kids in school. So now I'm like, wow, it's like I have something that I get from the older kids. They don't talk to these kids or the older guys, and I'm able to talk to them because I was the first one to start doing all this. And it's like I could be a leader in a sense, and I could be good at something. And this made me like popular in my own image in my mind. If uh, I had some kind of acceptance and people wanted something from me. So this is a huge lie Satan told me and continued to tell me for a long time, which allowed me to think, the more of this I do and the better I am at it. I actually had this, I'm going to exceed at being a partier and drug user and selling stuff and be the person that makes these things available. And it's just kind of strange because my dad was in recovery for since I was 2 years old. I don't ever remember him drinking. He was an alcoholic really bad. And it's just strange, that I end up, going down this road because I always saw him going to AA meetings when we were young, and I understood what it was to some extent. And I just was like, I'll never do that stuff. I'm never going to drink. I'm never going to be one of those people. And, I played sports in the neighborhood, even though, I wasn't popular. I was the guy that always got sacked real hard all the time because I was smaller and they did it on purpose. And, it's just, I don't know. I always had this nervous disposition and still do. Had a lot of fear issues, very jumpy and jittery. So people always kind of picked on me, even though I hung out with these people. They still really didn't accept me, for who I was. They never really tried to get to know me for who I was, other than my one friend, and he had the same issues, the mental health issues and popularity. For pretty much, we were the only friends, that really hung out with each other, me and him most of the time. And that was pretty much to be my relationship friend wise with people. I would always just have like one good friend and some acquaintances and stuff that I would talk to or sell pot to or something. But this went on. I managed somehow to get very attractive girlfriends. I stayed with them for like 2 or 3 years when I was very young. I always believed in trying to stay with them and not cheating on girls and things like that. So I had this weird moral code, and I always have, but I see that it's just distorted in a sense that I let a lot of it go that didn't need to be let go. So anyway, yeah, it's this strange moral code that I had because I had this internal struggle in me to be a good person and do what's right and try to, keep in mind how God would act. And even though the drugs were involved, and I'll get into another at least one or two videos on the actual problem with drugs. The biggest problem with drugs is the behavior afterwards, and it depends on which drug it is, obviously. I'm not pro drug, I don't do them anymore, but I'm just saying I do take medications. But all drugs aren't these evil things, otherwise we would be able to I could easily make a case saying that alcohol is either the most harmful and dangerous drug that there is, on Earth, or probably within the top two, maybe top three at the best outcome. So I would think it's the worst substance, if maybe number two to heroin or cocaine. It's hard. It's hard. It depends on the person. It's all individualized. And unfortunately, I am an expert in this area because I spent a lot of time researching things, and I wouldn't sell drugs like cocaine. I have a couple times, like a small amount to a friend, just because I got it to do myself years ago, but I don't, I didn't have I just had a conscience in some sense. Like I'm not selling something that causes that level of addiction. I'm not, even though some people don't get addicted to it, or heroin. I never got involved really in heroin. I've done it, a bunch of times. Just strange. Heroin never took a grip on me, but I've done it probably over 100 times, just almost recreationally, I guess. But cocaine certainly did, and that brings me into my next attack from Satan, which was to be one of the biggest. For me, cocaine was a huge demon because I was extremely addicted to stimulants because they have a kind of a counter effect for people like me that have a lot of ADD, anxiety, or racing thoughts. It kind of stimulates the brain and actually helps it focus, which in turn subsides the anxiety for a while, and then it kind of turns on you. So it's a very short acting drug. So the propensity to redose is insane. And that's what makes it so evil, I guess, and that along with the cost of it. In and of itself, it's not that harmful of a substance if it wasn't so addictive. That's the problem. But the problem becomes the behaviors afterwards that people typically get involved in. Higher sexual type desires come into play because stimulants do that. Stealing because the money to get it, because it's expensive. It's really not expensive. It's dirt cheap, but because of the black market, it's expensive. Just all kinds of things that come into play. It's usually your conduct after taking drugs that makes them, quote unquote, evil or bad. But that's not always the case. There's good drugs and there's bad drugs, just like prescription medications. I'm going to get into that more some other time. I'm sorry. I don't have a lot of time. I don't want to waste everybody's time talking about that right now. I'm trying to just give you a snapshot of what happened in my life. Even though this is long and probably going to be two parts, this is still just kind of a snapshot of what happened. It would be days and days long. But so anyway, I fall in love with this girl, so in love with her, and then we dated for 3 years, and then I was in a relationship with her, and then her best friend, who I didn't know that well. I just knew who she was. I met her a couple times. I ended up giving her a ride home after me and my girlfriend broke up. She broke up with me. So I gave her a ride home. She gave me her number, and I ended up in a relationship with her for about 2.5 years. And that was the only girl that I ever cheated on. And I did it a few times, and I did it with my ex-girlfriend that I originally fell in love with, who I suspect that, because she ended up having another boyfriend at the time. So I felt horrible. It was like, here we are. But it's like, oh, it was okay because I was with her so long, and I really still care about her. Maybe, I don't know what I was thinking, but that happened. And then one other time I was drunk, and these two girls were around, and things weren't going that well with the one girlfriend, and I ended up cheating on her again. So I called her the next day and told her about it. Said, I can't do this behind your back. I made a mistake. I don't know what to do. And she wanted to kind of work through it. And I don't know. I said, we shouldn't be together. I don't know. I don't want to do this. And I was really being selfish because she wanted to get married and everything. I was out of my mind. This was the best girl. It's funny because she said this to me, that you're going to regret this. And I did. I mean, this is the girl that I should have married out of all the girls I was with. I was with another girl 7 years down the road. But this ended up being the girl that I would have married. And I can't find her now. I have no idea. I've tried to search, and I'm good at that. Where she is, can't figure it out. So it's just horrible. More to apologize than anything else, and just to see how she's doing, but it haunts me. And she was gorgeous. And she was also probably the best looking girl I was ever with. Not that she was the nicest. She was smart. I was like, if I knew then what I know now, it's just so, we all say that, but it's horrible. So now this brings me to the age of about 18, and 18 years old, going on 19. And it's horrible because, I left her to go hang out with this friend of mine who was a guitar player, awesome guitar player. And I thought I was going to be able to be a singer. So I bought all this equipment, and I tried to, and it just was so selfish and stupid of a decision. It haunts me still to this day. And I'm trying to be a singer and playing rock and roll at these places. And uh, just to skip back a little, I ended up hanging out, and this was all kind of the same friend group, but it was a couple years earlier when I was with the previous girlfriend, and we ended up playing the Ouija board in the basement of another friend's house several times. I didn't want to do it because I was telling them this was not a good idea, and then I was like, yelling at the Ouija board from a distance, talking. This thing was moving without their hands on it. Sometimes it would go off the board, and that house became so haunted. Just in a nutshell, there were natural things that we witnessed there that were not good. You know, just very scary stuff. Her brother, that was 5 years old, would be like holding a knife over their parents' bed, talking in like this weird demon tongues, and like his eyes would be rolled back in his head. In the middle of the night, he'd wake up and do this. This little kid that was 5 years old. That's just one example, but there ended up being an exorcism there, like an actual exorcism, where the charismatic Catholic priest came, and everybody that played the board ever there, any of the friends, there was like 20 of us in their living room. They all had to be there, and we had to do this exorcism. So it was pretty intense. Sorry to skip around. So that was kind of crazy. Then what happens is I'm 18, almost 19. I get pulled over one day in front of my mom's house. I was living with her, and I had a loud, high performance like engine and this exhaust, cherry bombers in my exhaust, type of exhaust, and it was loud. And state trooper pulls me over in front of my house. It's like a nice July day. The neighbors out barbecuing. It's like 4 in the afternoon, and they said, you know, Vinny, we got a search warrant for you, your house, your car, everything, your mom's house. They were going to tear apart my mom's house. And I was mainly just selling marijuana. You know, I get a decent amount for that age of a kid to be selling. You know, wasn't working. I would work on and off, but you know, we ended up getting LSD, me and the partner that I was in with on this drug stuff, and we only did this one time, and the one time we did it, we had, I mean, a fairly large amount for kids that are that age. I had 1,000 hits of acid, and I had 400 hits of acid, 4 sheets of acid at my mom's house, hidden, you know, in my armoire. This is a really nice neighborhood. So this is embarrassing because there's all different cops on the side of the road: the North Syracuse, the sheriffs for the county, state troopers, undercover cars. There's like 8 cop cars, and I'm like 18 years old. And so they're gonna tear my mom's house apart, and I'm like, oh. I said, fine, it's up here in my room. And I showed them, they were looking for marijuana. That's what the search warrant was for. And I accidentally, like, I don't know why, there's like 4 cops right in my bedroom. I had a walk-in closet. I told them it was up in the attic. So they started tearing apart insulation there. And I go to, something in my head said, if I get the LSD and put it in my crotch, that they won't look there. So I don't know why I thought to do this. They probably would have never found it. But I mean, nevertheless, it's bad that I did this, or had this at all. And anyway, I don't know. So I go over to the armoire, and I just open it, and they're like, "What are you doing?" They like slam me on the bed. They're like, "Are you crazy? You could have got shot. We could, you know what I mean? What are you?" And then instantly, they went over there. So I just told them, basically, you know, gave them a red flag. Here, there's something bad in here. So they started searching through things really, you know, detailed. And there's some ecstasy pills in there too, not a lot. And that was back when nobody even heard of it. This was like in 1993, 92, 93, yeah, 92, 93. Nobody even really heard of ecstasy back then in New York State. But anyway, it was just it was a horrible experience. I was scared to death. I was screaming in the cop car, "Jesus, help me, Jesus, help me," like to the top of my lungs. And it was just a scary experience. But I can tell a whole story about that, or make a whole video about exactly that whole experience, what happened. If people are interested, just leave it in the comments, and I'll make a video about that. Okay, so just to skip back a little bit, I'm sorry, I forget things. Anyway, with the LSD thing, I don't know. I was under this illusion, you know, that it's this spiritual experience that you're having, and that it opens like doors or windows into the spirit world. And I have experienced some pretty intense stuff on it. But, you know, despite the fact it is actually being studied very seriously for some mental health issues, and using it in therapy again, it's being studied. So in and of itself, I don't believe, and I'll make another video about this if people want me to, um, about, you know, LSD being pretty much a very, very harmless drug. It's not neurotoxic. Now, to the body, to the mind, it has potential to harm you psychologically, just due to the experience, you know, as far as like emotional response, or if the LSD is tainted or in some way, or if it's not, if it's been old or something. But anyway, I don't want to get into too much of that. I'll make another video on that. And Basically, another crazy thing I did is senior year, or not senior year, but 10th grade, I ended up dropping out of school. I had like average grades. I had like an 84 average, and the principal was like, "Why do you want to leave?" I'm like, "Well, I just don't agree with what you teach here." I was like a very like a rebel hippie kind of kid, and the hippie scene kind of came back, in the early 90s, and the grunge movement and the grunge era was kind of integrate and intertwined with all of that. And so that was kind of my outward identity. And it's all about like peace, everybody getting along. I didn't like steal or things like that unless I would from a company, like a company that had a lot of money. I would take something small once in a while. I've done in my life, but I wouldn't steal from an individual. I just wouldn't do that, especially if they were poor, or didn't have a lot. I just didn't believe in that. But needless to say, I also, yeah, gave the half of the 10th grade class on the last day of school. I sold them LSD. So you had like, I don't know, had a small class, we had like 110 kids. You had like 40 kids tripping on LSD the last day of school in 10th grade. I came back to 11th grade and I was taking acid all the time. So I was just like very out there with my viewpoints on life and things like that. And so I only participated in about the first week or two of school before I made that decision. When I made that decision, my mom said, "Okay, if you want to do that, that's fine, but you're going to have to move out, be a big boy, and support yourself. Then, if you want to, go to work and be this, adult that you think, you know everything, then go to work." So I did. I went to work. I got into sales, and I worked as a banquet houseman. I made pretty good money for a kid my age. I had my own apartment at 16 years old. You know, uh, I had an okay car, and I always had money. I was selling pot too on the side, not huge amounts, but I make a couple $100 here and there. And so this went on, and then obviously, because I backed up, I got the LSD charge, which was a very serious Class B felony. God got me out of that, and also I don't even want to get into too much of how it happened, but let's just say there was an Italian restaurant I worked at, and they liked me, and because I'm Italian, they were like, I'm having this big party, and the judge was there, and they were all drinking, and the owner of the restaurant was there, and he called me over, and he said, "Hey," he said, "youthful offender, my lips are sealed." The judge, he's like half cocked, and I'm like, "What?" And then I looked up youthful offender, and sure enough, they kept it in town court and dropped the B felony all the way down to an A misdemeanor, and I ended up getting 3 years of probation for that, which for 400 hits of LSD, which is a pretty significant reduction. My lawyer was like, I had a good lawyer too, but he said, "Geez," he's like, and he was like 70 years old. I haven't seen maybe 3 people get a class, B felony dropped to an A misdemeanor the whole time I've been practicing. So, God was looking out for me in a big way. I didn't deserve it. I definitely didn't deserve it. Because the thing is, I didn't realize it's like, yeah, okay, some people can have these safe, maybe even, beneficial experiences on LSD, but that's in a clinical setting. And, pot's fairly harmless, but, it makes people tired. And it's like I don't have I finally realized, after growing older that I don't have the right to be able to sell those kinds of things. I don't have a license, to sell medical, anything or any type of drug, and I'm thinking in my head because I know a lot about this stuff and I might know more than some of the pharmaceutical companies, the people, the individuals that are actually working on things in some ways, but overall, I don't have the knowledge to be able to make those decisions, and I don't have the license, and I don't have, you have to do things by a certain standard in society, and I was a rebel. I just thought, I'm going to do things my way. I'm not a bad guy, I'm not out to hurt anybody, but in fact, it does hurt people, and I caused a lot of harm when I sold another substance, and I'm going to get into that in part two. Ended up in a federal indictment, and that changed my life. It was scary. It was intense. It's a story that you could probably make a movie out of if I told the whole story. I'm not going to tell it all in part two of my life. I'm going to cover it a little bit. Just trying to give you the reason I'm telling this story or testimony, I don't know what you would call it at this point, is because all of this was going on and I was in a struggle, an internal struggle the whole time. And it's like, I'm trying to be this good. I'm trying to be, a person that Jesus would approve of. And and on the other hand, it's like I'm in a world of temptation and demons and thinking I can handle all this. Because when you get into the drug world, which I'll get into in more depth, it's like trying to summon a demon and think, this, you can control it, oh, I can control it, use it as it's just a bad thing to walk into, to think I had so much arrogance, I didn't think I was egotistical, but I was very arrogant in my opinions of life, and I was very arrogant in thinking that I was, above the law, not in a way that I wanted to be, harmful to people, but just like, just because something's illegal doesn't make it really that immoral or bad. Usually that's the way it works, but not all the time. There are exceptions, and I was trying to rationalize myself in my thoughts and the way I thought about life into these exceptions while I'm doing it in a nice way. I'm not charging a lot. I'm making sure that, I don't know. I just had all these, if people, couldn't afford it, sometimes I would just let the money go. I didn't care. I'm not going to get mad and go after somebody for a couple $100. And it was just a struggle to try to live that way. And I don't know, it was very, uh, impactful to me and hurt me bad when I realized the person that I really turned into, and that I thought, was this guy that's, has this, it's on a power trip really, and trying to make up the rules of life myself. Whether some of the points I had were valid and were good, I just went about things the wrong way. I should have, I don't know, became a advocate, started an advocacy group for these things that I believed in, and went about it the right way, but I didn't. So, well, a new chapter. I'm probably still missing things, but a new chapter that opened up as I, ended up going on. Well, I was on probation, like I said, for the LSD charge, and I ended up leaving on probation for LSD, going to Grateful Dead tour, the summer tour. This is 90, 93, and 94, or 94 and 95, I'm sorry. 94, and I went the whole summer, and at the end of it, I was just like, I thought this was like this peace-loving, it was all about, some of this, there were some interesting people there were some nice people there, but a lot of it was about, just partying and getting to the next show, just partying, getting to the next show. And there's a lot of things going on there that I didn't think went on at those types of things, ending up girls getting raped, just horrible stuff, people getting killed. And I was like, this is like the peace and love hippie movement scene. And it just wore on me. And by the time I was taking like LSD, here I am on probation for it, I'm out taking it and selling it. I can say this because the statute of limitations are well gone, but I'm not alive, but I'm selling like hits of ass. I'm like jumping up and down in the back of this truck at one point, selling LSD hot off the press, and I'm like selling hits of acid. And I don't know. I was with this guy that was 10 years older than me. I was 18, or I was 19. He was 29, and he was from Macon, Georgia. It was just interesting. He was more hyper than me, if you can believe that. So, I don't know. It was a crazy. I could make several videos just about the Grateful Dead tours and what happened. I can't get into all that here, and I've already gotten into too much detail for you guys. I feel like I'm going into things a little too deep. I got to move it along, even to just get through half of this, and because the second half of the life gets even crazier. But so I don't know. Inside, I think I'm like doing the right thing, but I'm really just partying, having a good time. I'm not. The thing is, we didn't get. I could have got involved in all kinds of sexual things going on there, and I didn't. I think I got really drunk once, and I ended up in a tent with a girl that was like 10 years older than me, and I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we ended up having sex, and I felt horrible about it. But that was it. I mean, I wasn't, one thing I was like able to, not that I didn't have the desires, but just something inside me always said that that's really, really, that's much more of an impactful sin. And I believe this, it's much more impactful sexual sin than it is to do drugs. Most, just to take something and put it like marijuana or LSD or something and put it in your body. Now you get into the, smoking crack every day and living in the city area with a lot of violence, and yeah, of course that's going to be it's individual drugs for individual people and individual situations. It all depends. It's not like these are bad for everybody's going to be go to hell, and the demons are going to be so bad for this, and everybody's going to go in this direction with this. Some people struggle with marijuana. They smoke marijuana, they don't do anything, they can't get a job, they don't do anything, they sleep, play video games, party, whatever. Other times, and when I get into the next part of my life, which I should probably skip over and just get into it now, is I ended up coming home from the Grateful Dead tour. I told my friend, oh, I got to tell you this part though. I had this experience. We ended up, Jerry Garcia died in 95. This was the next year. He died in 95. I was out on tour when it happened. We were waiting to go to the next show in St. Louis. And we said, everybody's like, what are we going to do? Everybody's like, what the heck? What do we do? So I went to this festival. I didn't know where we went, upstate Vermont somewhere. It's called Bread and Puppet, and I don't know. We were like the first ones there camping, and it was like we were the first ones at Woodstock too, the original Bethel reunion. There's like we're trying to find it. We're like, where Bethel is? Where the Woodstock's going to be? It's like it's here. It's like 3 people there, and and then you like see for 2 weeks staying there blows up into like 100,000 people. I'll get into that in another video. If you leave in the comments that you want to hear about it, um, leave in the comments too if you think, you could be critical. You do anything. I'm trying to get some type of engagement. If people interested in this stuff, should I make another video on something else? I really want to make videos on, things that are having to do with, addiction, mental health, something that I could do to contribute. Because outside of all this crazy partying, I ended up doing a ton of research when I got into computers, which is the next part of my life. But okay, so I say at this Grateful Dead show, or no, it was Red Puppet. What is this? And they're like, it's a pagan festival. I'm like, really? And I'm like tripping on acid every day. So I go, this is not right. I don't want to be here. And then so the last day is like this big, huge presentation, and we're sitting on this like huge hill, and then there's like a huge field size area down below, and everybody's sitting on the hills, and they're doing this strange presentation that I don't know, puppets and like these weird dragons, and like there's like 10 people all in one costume, like making this tall, all this kind of crazy stuff, and the grass starts to grow and rot, and all these like lizards and crickets started just going everywhere on me, and I started to really lose it mentally. And I don't know if it was a mental or spiritual or a combination of both, but whatever happened, I just got up and I started to walk away from this, and I had to get away from this. And everybody started to turn into witches and warlocks in like 10, 12 feet tall. They were stretched out, their bodies. Like, it was very creepy. Darkness, dark shadows everywhere. The whole like earth just went dark, and it was like being in somewhat, maybe not as bad as hell, but it was really scary. It was like if there's levels of hell, this was like the first level. And I don't know, even little kids there. They had like little kids there, like 8 years old, 10 years old, smoking pot with dreadlocks like down to their butt. I don't know where these people live or what they do. Where do they go to school? Like, how does this work? And I'm like, this is not right. Like, and I just keep walking and walking, and more of this like terrifying. These visuals are just happening out of my control, and I'm like, I'm gonna lose my mind or I'm gonna die. I don't know what's gonna happen. So I just walk and walk and walk, and I had to go to the bathroom. I had to go, number two really bad. I ended up walking like a quarter mile away. I had this messy diarrhea everywhere while I'm like all these visuals and everything's happening, and I'm having all these feelings. They just drop, and I'm like start to pray. God, I started to intensely pray for, I don't know how long it was, but just for everything to stop and apologize and everything. So I go back to the festival towards it, and everything starts to stop. Like the trip starts to go down. There's no more warlocks. I'm still kind of tripping on acid, but just starts to subside back to normal very quickly. Like that, this didn't usually happen. Like things really calmed down pretty fast. I was still had a lot of anxiety, and I told my friend, I want to go. I want to leave. I'm going off this tour. I'm not doing it anymore. I want to go home. I want to go home. So I called my mom. She said I can go home. And here I am. I've been gone for 3 months on probation. And I call my probation officer. I don't know. This is a blessing. He said, I'm gone 3 months. It's partying and crazy. 3 months not showing up, partying, drugs. Told him honest truth of what happened. I'm down in Georgia. I live in Syracuse, or I'm down in Georgia because I had to drop my friend off. His family's down there, and he's complaining like, "Oh, you're leaving me. Everybody leaves me." And it's like I can't do this anymore. I'm like, I don't want to live this way. So I go. I tried meth for the first time. I go to this place, drop my friend off. They're all like bikers. Like it's like 3 in the morning. There's all these bikers hanging out. I don't know. I think they're like cooking meth in the kitchen. There's like 12 people in the house. Nobody bothered me. They're all friendly, but I was young. I was like 19 years old. What are you gonna do? Anyway, so I tried the meth, and I got in the car and I drove straight home, 20 hours. Straight home. I stopped like 3 times. One time I stopped, I had hot dogs and, got gas. And the next time I might have stopped 1 or 2 more times for gas. That's it. I drove straight home. I got back home. It was pretty late at night. I don't know. It was like, let's see. I don't know. It was late. It was probably like almost midnight when I got home. My mom has, Italian dinner all made for me, bread, garlic bread, all this stuff, homemade sauce, spaghetti, meatballs, my favorite meal. And it's like, oh my God, she's like, this is the story of the prodigal son. And at this point, my mom was like really into the Bible and things, and had been praying for me. And I told her, she knew what I was doing. Like I told her what I wanted to do. I was just uncontrollable. You know what I mean? I was just like, had this mindset. I mean, this is what I'm going to do. But I was still a nice guy. But I'm like, I'm not trying to. But some people might say, well, you're selling drugs. Well, it is. Yeah, that's wrong. That's bad. I'm trying to do my best, and I'm not doing a very good job. But uh, I don't know. It just, I came home, and everything changed. I was like, I can't. I just got called by God back to Him, and I started going to church. A lot of times I go by myself, and I started, I got in the Word. I started praying a lot, and I gave up like everything. No girls, sex, nothing. No lust. Try not to even look at girls lustfully. No drugs, obviously. No nothing. I tried to be like, I don't know. I'm the type of person that I don't swear. If I do, it's an accident. And I correct myself. I talk to Jesus all day, and I went back to RCIA classes at the Catholic Church. Which is what I was supposed to get my confirmation. Remember, my grandma said, "Oh, you don't have to, honey." Well, anyway, I ended up going back and making my confirmation on my own. I'm in this adult RCIA class with all of the couples that are getting married, because they're the only ones probably to take this. It's like, I don't know, like a 10-week class, once or twice a week. And then you get confirmed into the church so you can get married. Well, I was just there by myself. I'm like this young kid there by myself going into the class. And I got confirmed, and, it was a good experience, and I just, even though I was Catholic, I didn't I didn't agree with all the things, but I mean, it's still, that's what I agreed with, certain things, the traditions that I liked, and it's evolved today into, I don't know what I'm Christian, and I agree with a lot of the Catholic stuff that Christians don't agree with, and I agree with a lot of the Christian stuff that some Catholics don't agree with. So it's like a hybrid Christian Catholic. I don't know, maybe more Lutheran Christian, somewhere in there. I think I fall. I'm looking for a church right now, but anyway, oh my God, it's 45 minutes. I'm sorry, everyone. If this is interesting, I guess you're still watching it, or you just think I'm crazy, but I don't want it to get too long and too carried away. So I'm going to have to, I guess, end it here for part one, and hope that I could finish let's see, we ended with the Grateful Dead tour and coming home and the story of the prodigal son that my mom, and actually this really did. It was like I had read it before, probably several times, but it really never really. This is pretty much what happened to me. You know, I went away, squandered, partied, did all this stuff, and then I come home and my mom just welcomes me, no criticism, nothing. Just and today I'm still, you know, I'm best friends with my mom, and my mom, I talk to her like 5 or 6 times a day. You know, I don't have a girlfriend. I haven't for almost, what, 2.5 years. I don't, I don't know. Uh, Drugs I've still struggled with on and off, but I haven't for a while now. You know, I mean, I don't know the exact day that I haven't done any. So I take medications and I take nootropic supplements, and I think there's a lot to be said there as far as things that we're missing on addiction, and that's where I think I can, you know, help. That's where I think I can be a resource for an advocate for Christ. And I think you need this holistic approach to addiction. I think you need medication, you need spirituality, or I think Christian, obviously, I think you need Christ. And I think you need the psychological and the psychosocial aspects all need to be covered in the right way, and the approach has to be right. For it has to be, you know, customized for each person, because not everybody's the same, and not everybody's going to respond to addiction treatment the same. So maybe that's my calling. I don't know. I've researched all this stuff. That's what I do. I research stuff every day, all day. But anyway, I'm gonna cut it down here. You guys better thank you. But anyway, I really appreciate everybody. Please, I mean, I'm really nervous about. I was nervous. I still am about making this video and putting myself out there. My whole intention is to make videos that are helpful for people and to try to glorify Christ through struggles and show that people can go through these struggles and people can, you know, realize now, you know, that the things that they thought were right, and not lose their faith. You know, even though I wasn't obedient in many ways, a couple things I did okay in, but I didn't lose my faith. I didn't completely turn into this horrible, horrible person, but surely far, far away from what I should have been doing and how I should have been living. Anyway, I'm working on that right now. I think I'm a way better than I was for sure back then, but no, you know, it's just a constant thing that goes on. Anyway, everybody, I have love for everybody. Only through Christ, only through Christ, and only through Jesus have I survived this life. The amount of drugs I've done and the mental health issues that I get into in the next video is even way, it makes this look like a fairy tale. This video, it gets really bad. So I want to just make this video, to make the next video to show people what can happen and how Christ protects people in trials and struggles in life. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. Please leave a comment. If you want to subscribe, that would be great too. If I get subscribers more and more, you know, even though I'm new at this, I'm going to make more and more videos because I have the time to do it. So thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. I love you through Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.